Good morning, everyone. We are live again on YouTube and LinkedIn, bringing you yet another exciting episode of the Top Innovator Series. This is where we dive into proven leadership ideas, game-changing strategies, and of course, the brilliant minds behind all of them. I'm Josef Martens, your host, and I'm delighted to introduce today's guest to you. With us today is Norman Kromberg. Norman is holding several executive roles in the security space. He's an advisor to TrustCloud and Wolfpack Security. He is the CISO and CEO of SommIS, a cybersecurity firm. He is also an executive member of the CyberEdBoard in Nebraska. And in the past, he held several other CISO and information security leadership roles in a variety of organizations. And most importantly, today he is with us in this conversation. Norman, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here with us today.
Joseph, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation about leadership and how we've evolved. This should be interesting and enjoyable and fun.
Awesome. Yeah, and I love the fact that you talk about evolving in that role right away, because I think that's how many people experience it as growth in that role. When you reflect on your journey, which has been super successful, when you reflect on that, how would you attribute the success? Where do you think are the key ingredients for your success?
Oh, interesting question, the key ingredients. And I'm glad you're asking this after I've been in the industry over 30 years. I'm closer to retirement than when I started out. And so reflection gives us a lot of opportunity what those ingredients are. Mm-hmm. Words that come to mind when you think about that success, first of all, passion. I think any leader, and Lord knows we see that in the world today, whether it's in the government sector, the private sector, not-for-profit, those leaders who have a passion or that fire for what they're working on, to me is key. I'd also add to that, maybe I'm developing a new acronym of what I am, is impatience. Okay. The patience to see, evolve, listen, let things come together and observe that complement that passion, and then let those key traits, those ingredients maybe drive what you do. Let's face it, we all have the technical knowledge. We've got the training. We've been to university. Yep. We've been through certifications. Lord knows I've got plenty of certifications. But to me, those are part of the ingredients. But if you combine it with that passion to always be learning, observing, listening, with the patience to see all these different views that come together, seems to be what's part of what, as I reflect back, has led me to where I'm at today.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the way you phrase this, right? We all have the credentials, we have the education, we have that background. It's almost table stakes, right? That's sort of the going in position. Yeah, but at the same time, that's what a lot of people are focusing on and don't realize there's something else that's important. Tell me, was there an aha moment? Was there a discovery for you at a certain point that you realized there needs to be more than the credentials? There is more than the education. Was there an aha moment? Was this with you the whole time? Or how did you get to that point?
Well, obviously, I think the things I described are with you. I mean, let's face it, you have the passion, you have the patience. Those are just traits that leaders have, I think, that are in their DNA. If you think of an aha moment, and there's been several of them for me, but some of them I think back to is where you achieve something, and it's a pretty significant achievement. Like one place I worked at, we invested $1 in cybersecurity or information security program. We believe, and we had the CFO confirm this, added over $100 of value to the company because we were trying to be sold. So I use that, Joseph, as a evidence of, okay, when you bring these things together, there's something substantive that you can say, crap, this stuff works. And it was that kind of moment. I've had several of those, when I was running an IT audit function, again, passion, patience, but the CIO and I worked closely together to get ready and have action plans, things like that for the enterprise. It was a global scale. And to see that success, that partnership materialize.
Yeah. The focus on passion, no doubt important, no doubt critical. And you say we have it in us, right? And the reality is sometimes we lose a bit of that passion, right? It gets lost in the day-to-day grind. It gets lost over time. And sometimes we become transactional or just doing the job as business. How do you keep the passion alive? How do you...
Well, you also have to do self-reflection too, because I'm glad you said that, having that passion, but the passion can change. As you get older, companies evolve. Let's face it, the loyalty that some of us saw back when we were in college. I was in university in the early 80s. Everybody came out thinking you're going to be with a company for 30 years. Well, in this day and age, these companies aren't loyal to you. You're not loyal to them. And the reason it isn't loyal is they get bought and sold. So I think that plays into that passion. You may have a passion for what your skills and capabilities are, but let's face it, you've evolved, the company evolves. So some of it is, where do I place that for the next phase? You mentioned what I'm doing now. I work with several firms where I can deploy this passion for security aligned with a business model. And by doing that in all these different ones, I can keep that passion going for the benefit of the industry. For other people, it could be, I have such a distinct passion for the mission of the organization. And they will stay there and continue to have that. And that is great. That's fine. Everybody has to see it for themselves. So you asked a great question. How do you sustain that? Well, and it's not negative that it changes or evolves or moves to a different spot.
Yeah. And what do you do as a leader about the passion? So you have teams, you have people who come with their own motivations, their own drives, and their own passions. What can you do as a leader to keep the fire in them going, to keep them energized? Or would you say there is nothing you can do, and if it's gone, they need to look for another place? How do you handle that as a leader?
Well, it's a great question, because one of the techniques I've used when I'm building teams or trying to get teams unified, I use things like personalysis. These things where you can say, what are the natural thought processes of each person? To me, I'm very conceptual and strong analytical. Okay, I know that about myself, but what's the rest of the team's one? So are people detailed? Are they social and all that? So understanding that, because that's part of that passionate view. So I just try to orient people, understand who their thought processes. But then to your point, if people lose it or evolve or grow, they can make changes in the org. Sometimes it's to leave. And I sit down and talk to them and I say, hey, I've even done that to myself. I've gotten to the point, because I tend to be one who constructs and develops programs or strategies. If I get to maintenance mode, you said transactional, that's a good way to look at it. If it gets to that point, guess what? I'm not as passionate because it's repetitive. It doesn't work for me because I'm that conceptual one and that analytical, so I can conceive things. Well, I'm going to move to the next opportunity than to stay there and maintain. So I think, Joseph, it's a lot about knowing who you are, helping the people around you understand who they are. Let's face it, you want diversity of capability. So if everybody was the same, we're not going to be as good as a team versus everybody with different skills, capabilities, and traits. And respect that they can be in a certain role, and that's not a bad thing. It's just back to that point of having my passion for developing the team, but the patience to let people evolve and be who they are, versus putting them into a box.
Nice. That's a nice way of framing it. Let me take another look at your leadership journey and look at it from a different perspective. What were some surprises that you encountered? And I mean surprises in terms of how leadership works. Because we all have some kind of idea of how things should play when we have a conversation, when we lead people, when we give feedback, and so on, right? But sometimes reality is different from what our preconceived idea was. So what was a surprise for you as you progressed in your leadership role?
Well, there's probably been a couple. One, Y2K. Now I'm dating myself, we're 25 years past Y2K, but we were talking through, what are our alternatives? What can we do? And this was a conversation with CEOs, CFO, chief legal counsel, a couple of us in audit, security, groups like that. We actually toyed with, and this is an aha moment where, how do you reach decisions or think of things? We said, can we go lobby the Congress in the United States to repeat 1999? No, so you're sitting there going, okay. Yeah, that's the reaction. So it's the wow. But we went through about an hour and a half discussion of, could we do that? What are the pros and cons? Well, Joseph, it taught me you can think outside the bounds as a contrarian or this to get to better decisions. The result was it's going to cost us a lot. The likelihood of success, because of the nature of political infrastructure, it would have taken longer than what we had. So we then said, okay, we can invest here. And we started approaching the project with some additional insights, because we opened our eyes. We can communicate, we can talk, we can lobby. So that was an aha moment. Maybe on the more negative side, the aha moments when you get called into an office and say the company's just been sold and your roles are not there. And it's like, okay, didn't necessarily anticipate this, but what's that opportunity? And it challenges you to say, okay, where do I take that passion? Where do I take that patience, and how can I move forward? Those are two that I play into it.
Got it. But wow, I mean, what an example. Repeating 1999. And what an awesome example for out-of-the-box thinking or coming up with courageous ideas. Yeah, would never have occurred to me, that idea, and the boldness in that idea, right? And you could, yeah.
Well, and the boldness to at least have the conversation. Nobody discounted it. We all go, okay, let's go through this. And that's, to me, some of the power of leaders. And can the leaders work together, too? Because a lot of times people think you have just one leader. Let's understand this. In most organizations, you've got multiple. There's alphas and alphas. Okay, how do you unify the alphas? Well, that was masterful in that room of people talking. Okay, each one had their experience and perspectives, but nobody was disrespected. We were all there.
Love it.
And I call it that contrarian view. And and it's not bad. Contrarian sometimes is negative, but think about how you challenge yourselves that way. And I try to continue to deploy that now. Hey, let's think outside the box. Let's think on a different scale to prompt thought.
I love it. That really pushes the envelope of thinking of what is possible. And of course, at some point, if we go even further, at some point it becomes absurd. But to keep pushing, but every innovation seemed absurd at some point, right? So to push it, I love that example. Really neat. Yeah. Let me take another perspective at your journey and look at some more experiences, lessons learned. I'm sure you had advisors, trusted advisors in your life, or people who were close to you, who you chatted with, asked for advice, and maybe they even shared unsolicited advice, and so on. What was some what was some advice that you received that maybe didn't sound good at the time, and you might have discarded it or thought, what a stupid idea, how absurd is that? And later you realized, maybe there was more wisdom in that than I thought at first.
You know, Joseph, what you described, the word I would apply to those individuals are your mentors. And sometimes the mentors are when you engage, sometimes they engage with you. Let's face it, later in life, you realize how valuable those mentors are because they provide exactly what you said. They're going to tell you straight up, hey, you might want to do this differently. So for me, my passion early in my career, man, it was action oriented. Driving. Okay. Well, sometimes that didn't necessarily resonate with different people, but as I did the personality test, we understood it. I had this conceptual view of something, and then my mentors helped me say, Norm, you can jump into something and almost immediately you see the 5 to 10 steps down the line. But understand the people you're working with are more methodical. And so come back and then let the process go. That's what mentors were telling me. So it's the aha. And, at the moment you're going, when I was younger, Well, now I see it. So I've actually taken advantage of that to say, okay, once I have this image or view in my mind, let's then keep going patiently through this and see what value can get from those people that think differently and what they'll contribute, because they come up with specifics that are powerful and useful. So that's the one I think of, and I've applied that, as the national president of Co-ed Professional Business Organization. Part of it from when I joined in college, but evolved in essence, I was a volunteer CEO, multi-million-dollar budget, 4,000 to 5,000 new people a year. In those cases, you had to balance that too, and you're listening to your board and staff, and in those cases, understanding what are those agendas, if you will, and it's volunteer-based, so much more emotional than in the commercial world.
Yeah. So what I hear there is really the encouragement to others to look for these mentors, to find them, especially when they provide ideas that don't fit in at the moment, that push you outside your current thinking at the moment.
Yeah, and if I was somebody, regardless of what technical environment you're in or what generation you're in, to me, one consistency I've seen in most high caliber leaders, and I'm actually have a Berkshire Hathaway shirt on today, based in Omaha, Nebraska, so we pay attention to Warren Buffett. If you listen to his story, you will hear him reference people who influenced him, his mentors. So I share that almost every really successful leader has had several mentors in their life that they've relied on.
Yep. Yep. We talked about your past leadership journey so far. I would like to take a look at today now, if we could, Norman.
Yeah.
And this is not a question about positions, companies, or anything like that. It's, again, still about leadership journey. So I would love to know, where are you today? When you look at where you are now, what would you say are some areas where you're focusing on right now? Where do you think is your potential for growth? Where is your area that you would like to put your energy in right now?
Love the question. And I'll go back to, I think I've got the chance now. I'm not going to be the CEO of a major company. I'm not going to be this. But what I can be is somebody who helps other people develop, be that mentor to others. And I'm working with some. So if you look at a lot of the roles and things I'm doing now, what my joy comes in is going in, understanding what somebody's facing, whether it's an individual, an organization, and saying, what are your opportunities? What's that roadmap forward, both on the people side, the process side, and the technology side? So being that mentor, 30 plus years of experience, a unicorn, because I was a finance and management major, so I have different skills than a lot of other technology people, but applying that for small to medium startups, larger orgs, not-for-profits. So Joseph, just pulling that mentor point forward, being that person that makes other organizations better, makes other people better.
Yeah. Nice. When you look at your future, if we had this conversation in 3 years' time, what do you think might be different at that point? And again, not company, not position, not technology, your leadership. If we were to talk in 3 years, how do you think you might evolve in those 3 years? How would you describe the evolved Norman leadership perspective?
It's funny you say that, because I go back 5 years when we were going through the pandemic. One of the favorite terms I kept hearing is the new norm. And I'm going, wait a minute, how many new norms can there be? But and I'm going to borrow this, because the question you have is, how will the new norm look in 3 years, 5 years? And I think it will be somebody who is comfortable in success, comfortable to mentor other leaders, comfortable to kind of be driving transitional plans, and identifying those unique things that people can take advantage of. I mean, I was just having this conversation today. It's looking at things in a different way. AI is a big thing now, right? Everybody has to bring it up in every technical conversation. If you reflect back, the internet was the same way when it first started encroaching into the business world. Now, does anybody refer to the internet the way they did then? We're going to be an internet-based company. We're going to do this. We're going to use this from the internet. No, it's kind of, it's the utility now. Well, let's apply that. So back to me, I want to help people continue to enable those kinds of ideas. And in, 3 to 5 years, be that trusted source of knowledge, guidance, and leadership.
Love it. And I really like the phrase "new norm." I didn't even think of this. That's nice. Have you used that before, or did you just coin this phrase right now?
No, I've used it before, because I sat there all the way through, a full year. Everybody said the new norm, and I was just going around, how many times can I get defined as new? And I kidded about it, but it kind of plays off, so I continue to use it. Yeah,
I like it. Very good. So let me ask you one more question, and then we'll land the plane here. When you look at peers, when you look at other people who are in similar levels that you are, and you look at what they're doing, without making anyone wrong or without looking for fault, but what do you think are some of the things that many of your peers are not getting right? What do you think they see not quite the way they could see it, or they maybe take action that doesn't make sense? So what is something that you are seeing that many others are not?
It's a great question, because I've thought about this. And what I think is, I see a lot of, especially in the world of technology, we both in there, they get very, very caught up in a set vision or set of things and don't see parallel things or other parts of the business. In other words, they get a very specific roadmap and set of steps. And I think that's where I see a lot of people failing. They don't catch the other things in the business world what really matters. So I go back to the example I gave you on Y2K. A lot of times I'll say, why do you have to do that? And they go, because this said so. And I go, does it really say that? Or do you have an opportunity? So I think that's where I think some people are going to be challenged, especially as things evolve. I mean, heard one person say, I'm not going to talk to this particular firm because if I use them, they're going to eliminate my job because they're so good at what they do. I won't have my position. And that's probably not the right way when you think about the company. So Joseph, I put it in that category. When I see somebody like that, I go, okay, how can we help them or guide them or get them to think what works best for them too in the long run and the firms they're with?
Yeah, how can we increase the box in which they're thinking at least, right? If not get them outside the box, let's just make the box bigger somehow. Yeah.
And let's understand, that's because you're putting this concept of leadership. At some point, you still need those people who will operate in that, but that's ones who are comfortable in the roles they're in. So it's that balance. So maybe they're at a role they shouldn't, maybe come back to a different, more technical position. But I put it in the context of leadership there that you asked.
Yeah. Norman, thank you. This was an awesome conversation. Your example of Y2K and pushing the boundaries of creativity or how people think or having courageous ideas, that'll stay with me. That's an awesome example. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Enjoyed it.
Awesome. Everyone else out there, please like, subscribe, and comment on our videos. And most importantly, join us again when we're here for the next Top Innovator Series podcast. And until then, keep your brain cells active.